we come into being parents with these huge expectations. We're led a lot by the media and the movies, and we see all the ways of being a correct parent. But no one has ever, as far as my knowledge, sat a parent down and thought, okay, you're about to become a dad, you're about to become a mum. Now let's have a plan. What is your intention? What is your outcome? I mean, that needs to be, are you going to be like mum and dad? I like to take people back to think, well, what was their bringing up like? Were you happy? Were you a happy child? Did you find you struggled? And getting them to think about, what is truly important to them as being a parent.
Welcome, revolutionary mama, to the Raising Wild Hearts podcast. I'm Ryann Watkin, educator, mom of 3, rebel at heart, and passionate soul on a mission to empower and inspire you. Here, we'll explore psychology, spirituality, parenthood, and the intersection where they all come together. We'll discover how challenges can be fertile soil for growth, and that even in the messy middle of motherhood, we can find magic in the mundane. Join me on my own personal journey as I talk to experts and share resources on education, creativity, self-care, family culture, and more. I believe we can change the world by starting at home in our own minds and hearts, and that when we do, we'll be passing down the most important legacy there is: healing. And so it is. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Raising Wild Hearts podcast. Super excited to share today's interview with you. I'm sitting down with Kerre Burley, and we had a really fun conversation. Kerre teaches a process called the SleepTalk process, and you can learn more about that in the episode, but we talk about a ton. We talk about parental development. We talk about, obviously, parenting. Kerre is a mom of 5 boys who are all grown now. She has 3 grandchildren, and she's been working with children and families for over 50 years. And she's still blessed to be working with families all over the world and providing simple and practical solutions for minor and major childhood challenges. Her main modality that she teaches is SleepTalk, which is a simple and effective process. Her most meaningful accomplishment is now she teaches this protocol through her training organization to childhood and family educators and professionals all over the world. And she's really making a difference, even one family at a time. SleepTalk is a transformative protocol that offers invaluable support to parents in different areas of family dynamics. It also plays a pivotal role in helping children overcome challenges like bedwetting, separation anxiety, and adjustment difficulties. She has a ton of different reviews on her website, so go check those out. She lists her website at the end of the episode. By promoting a positive and nurturing environment, SleepTalk empowers parents to facilitate their child's emotional well-being and overall growth, fostering harmonious family relationships and leading to happier, more resilient children. And that is really the through line for this conversation. We talked about a lot about connection. We talked a lot about family dynamics. And I know no matter what stage of parenting you're in, it will be super helpful. So I hope you guys enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Let's just dive right in.
Please note, the opinions and perspectives of guests on the Raising Wild Hearts podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of Ryann Watkin or anyone associated with the Raising Wild Hearts podcast.
Hi, Kerre. Welcome to the Raising Wild Hearts podcast.
Good morning for me. Good evening for you, Ryann. Lovely to be here.
Yes, we've got quite the time difference going on, Kerre. Where are you in the world right now?
I'm at a little place, Ryan, called Port Macquarie on the coast in Australia. So for everybody that knows Australia, they mainly know Sydney and they mainly know Brisbane. I sit in the middle of those 2 big cities, which is fabulous.
Amazing. Amazing. So are you close to the ocean then?
Absolutely. I walk on the beach every day.
Isn't it
so
just,
I haven't always lived on the coast, but very pleased to be there now.
That's amazing. I find the ocean and the sand to be so therapeutic. We live close to the beach as well. And I can't say that I get there every day, but every time I do go, I'm like, I should do this every day. And life gets lifey and I don't, but it's amazing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, years ago, I used to live in the bush. In Australia, we call our green area the bush, and yeah, that's the same. I think it's just getting out, right? Getting out, changing the scenery, doing something back to nature makes such a difference.
Yeah. I find it like on two levels. It's so fulfilling for me, but I also find it if my kids are ever getting a little like squirrely, is what I would say. I'm like, okay, everybody out.
I love the word squirrely. I'll use that if I can. But no, and the research that comes out now about how important it is to get the kids outside is so important. I noticed in one of your podcasts you talked about outside education. A lot of the schools now are doing the same thing, and yeah, it's fabulous. We've known this for a long time. Mums have known this for a long time, but it's good now to see science catching up with us.
For sure. And it's so funny because it's so simple to like, oh, just go take a walk outside. It's almost like too simple. Like our brains don't want to make it that simple, but it is. It's just like go walk outside and you'll feel better.
Absolutely. And we're in Australia, Ryan, we're coming into our Christmas time is our big school holiday period. I know it's not the same in the States. But again, you just remind you, I love parents all of a sudden self-discovering that, oh yes, kids are swirly, time to get out to the park, time to get out to go for a bushwalk or, put the kids on the bike and let them just get out in nature. Um, I often have parents say to me, look, I can't afford this holiday. And of course, it's just a mindset. We're thinking about we've got to take them to the movies, we've got to entertain them and take them to the arcade. And it's like, no, there's plenty of other things to do. So sometimes, I think myself included, we always just have to be gently reminded that, life is life, but we just need to be a bit more creative.
Yeah, agreed. I was fortunate, we were fortunate enough to find this like quaint little nature-based, play-based preschool very early on when our bigger kids who are now 8 and almost 10 when they were little. And so I really learned so much about just letting them kind of roam and like just watching what they do. Currently, this is like literal current situation at my house. I mean, all my kids are at school today. But right now there is this nature fort set up in between three little palm trees where they've taken banana leaves and made a roof and they've made carpet. And in the process, they raked all the leaves from that area, which is like win-win. And they're like, can we please go outside and do this? I'm like, absolutely. They're like begging to go do this thing. And so it takes a little bit of freedom on our part as parents to like loosen the reins a little because we don't have control over them when they're in nature, like digging in mud and picking up ladybugs or whatever it is, so we have to loosen the reins, I think.
Yeah, interesting, Ryan, that you say that because when I was a kid, I can so remember us. It sounds horrific now, but us out making mud pies.
Yep.
If it was raining, we had our hands dirty. And of course, that was many generations ago. But it is interesting how my mum used to let us out in the morning and she'd call us again at night on
Yeah.
the weekend. So we were out all day. Um, and I do understand it is a different time now, but I mean, letting kids get back to as you said, getting back to being kids. Sometimes it's just mum and dad. We need to not be too worried about the kids getting dirty, not be worried about basically the kids hurting themselves because that's out of our control. We step in when we need to. You
Yeah.
It just reminded me, I guess I had a parent once tell me this great analogy, and it was that as parents, we really, how did she put it? She put it that we really are no more than shepherds for our children. They're not ours. They are basically just like our little lambs that we protect, but we must teach them the ways of the world. And that's our job. We're just looking after them. And mine have all left home now, my 5 boys. And so I'm at the end of that where I see them. They're grown men now. They have their own families. But it's like, yeah, I only had them for that short time to teach them what I knew. And then they were on their way. So I love using that analogy that, yes, we are all but shepherds. So I guess if any of the listeners find they are basically feel they're holding on too tight, you're definitely right. Time to loosen the reins a bit. Let them outside. Let them experience life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And I think it's such a good reminder for people like me who have multiple or even one young children who, like, when you're in it, as you know, it feels never ending. And like when you zoom out and look at the big picture of, like, I think I heard you say something to the effect of, and I'm paraphrasing here, like, when your kids leave, you get to like clean the house and it stays clean, and then you get to do whatever you want. And I was like, oh my God, it's kind of wild to think that they're not going to be in this house creating chaos forevermore. I mean, they're going to leave one day, right? And
Yeah.
it's kind of sad.
Well, I had 5 boys, as we spoke earlier, right? And I think it just a lot of women particularly fear it, the empty nest syndrome. They get really nervous, and I'm thinking I couldn't work out who was happier, myself or the washing machine, because at the end of the day, the washing machine used to work 3 loads every day. My kids were into sport, and now it gets used once a week, so it's really enjoying its retirement. Um, but it is, and I think it's because most of us are in that. Particularly with some parents, we're in survival mode. We go to bed at night exhausted. We wake up the next day, and it feels like Groundhog Day. You do it all over again. So nobody sort of looks at the end, and it comes quicker than you know. I know a lot of children are moving back. A lot of parents are giving here in Australia. A lot of parents are finding their 20-something children have moved back home to save for a house or whatever. But at the end of the day, that sort of survival mode, that day in, day out, isn't going to last forever. And again, that's where self-care is so important, and it's important for parents to have that in mind so they know there is life at the end, and a good life too, especially for the washing machine.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, our washing machine is pretty busy too, but 5 boys, Carrie, like everybody told me like boy energy is different. Boy energy is different. I'm like, no, like my girls are wild. They love playing outside. They're loud, but there is nothing like my 3-year-old toddler boy who like nothing. He's like a little, I don't even know. He's a force of nature. And so are my girls, but in a different way. So your house must have been so noisy. Like, how did you get a break from the noise?
Well, do it was interesting? I was lucky from a very early age. My children learnt that when mum was in the bath, you leave her alone, because often, it takes a while, but when you learn to just zoom out in the bath for an hour, that's all I needed every week, as long as I had my bath. And a little bit of training was eventually they learnt that don't talk to mum no matter what the challenge is. But I love that you say force of nature, because children are a force of nature. And sometimes, as parents, we want to mold them and shape them and get them to do what we want them to do. And it is so, what's the word? It's so not fair for the children. Certainly, I used to say I had 3 sons that only a mother could love, which was probably not the best thing to say now, but we laugh it off with the kids. But I certainly had a son at one stage who I took up triathlon simply to try and get the energy to cope with him. And people said, how is that possible? Well, I remember laying in bed at night and he was just trashing his room. And I'm thinking, I just don't have the energy for this. And so I remember very distinctly the next day. Now, he must have been 3 or 4 as well. And I remember going, okay, we're going to the pool. All right, we're not going to drive to the pool. We're going to walk to the pool. And I just started to try and find ways to harness this amazing energy that he had. And interestingly enough, he grew up to be a physical trainer. So, I mean, there you go. I was always worried it was going to be a stripper, but it became a physical trainer. So, and I went on. It was interesting. I did go on to realize that I needed a strategy to cope. I needed to find more energy, and starting to get into regular exercise really helped us both cope. So it seems like a very drastic thing to do, but at the end of the day, it worked out very well.
Hey, it's me, Ryan. So something I do every single day to invest in my growth, besides connecting with the humans on this podcast, obviously, is reading. Reading is where it all started for me. I was 5 when I became obsessed with books, writing them, reading them, collecting them. I love how I can get inspired with new ideas and stories and ways to grow. That's why I ask all my guests what they're reading. And finally, you can check out all the book recommendations from the experts and authors on the show in one place at raisingwildhearts.com/books. There are some life changers in there like You Are the Placebo, and a few hidden gems like Sacred Motherhood and Living, Loving, and Learning. So if you want to get your hands on your next great read, check out the full list by heading to raisingwildhearts.com/books. Okay, back to the show. Yeah, that doesn't sound drastic to me at all. In fact, we're finding much of the same. Actually, he started on this little thing called a balance bike. It's basically a bike with no pedals. And so they learn to push with their feet. And then once they get going, they kind of put their feet up and they learn to balance on this little bike. And he's been on that since he was 1. And we just got him a bike with no training wheels. And there he goes, this little bobblehead with his little helmet, just bobbling along on this bicycle. Like, the neighbors like drive by in disbelief because no one's ever seen a 3-year-old ride a bike. But it is so good for his to harness that energy and put that aggression to like being physical and moving his body and, getting through challenges. And so I agree. And same thing for me. And this is where we'll circle it around to that self-care piece. Like, I know that when I take a walk and go to like my weekly yoga class, like I know it makes me a better human. I know I'm going to be calmer and happier. So I think so much of it, and you talk about parental development. And so I love this. So much of it is where we need to be aware of what makes us tick. We need to be aware of what gives us energy because we know what drains us. We know what's frustrating. We know it's hard to cope with, but what we can start to become aware of is like what really fills us up and what really feels good. And even if it's just little glimpses every day. So talk to us a bit about parental development and a little bit about self-care, because that's all kind of related.
Oh, absolutely. One of the best things that I've ever done, Ryan, is I went and did a laughter leader course. And it's, if anyone's ever heard of laughter yoga, look it up on Google. It's been a movement that's been around for 30 years. But at this laughter leader course, it really just brought home to me that, even going through some of the most stressful, hardest times as a parent, if you can learn to laugh, if you can learn to look at the funny side of things, and I really mean laugh, not just have a snigger, but just be able to sit back and just see situations for what they are. Not only are you, as you said, you're healthier, but you actually can balance your body so much better and get rid of some of the stress. And once we get rid of that stress, we can tolerate a lot more. So when you look at, when we need to basically be really balanced and can control with our children, it does have a lot to do with your mentality and you being in the right space. And I love it when I can actually encourage parents that if they feel they're not there yet, to just, to walk away. Okay, we have 100 things like deep breathing, but just to walk away and just say to a child, look, mum's not ready yet. Can I come back, in 5 or 10 minutes, or I come back this afternoon and have a talk to you? I think it's interesting that we don't need to avoid these confrontations. We don't need to avoid times where we really must be a parent. We can't be a good friend. We need to be parents sometimes. We need to be that shepherd that's got to say the harsh things. But again, when we have our mind in the right place, and as you said, yoga is a perfect example. Going for a swim is another example. When we understand that, we're so much more tolerant and we can cope with so much more. And I remember having girlfriends look at me and go, are you on something? What are you taking? And it really is because you see the funny side of life. And my children, were entertaining. They
Yeah.
were very funny. But well, there were times where I totally lost the plot, and often it was because I had forgotten that one thing to just bring humor into the fold. And interestingly enough, it's we talk about parental development. I love it when parents say to me, "I've never heard of parental development." And I said, "Yes, have you heard of personal development?" And they go, "Oh, yes." "Have you heard of professional development?" "Oh, yes. I go and do courses every year for my job." It's like, okay, well, you don't think that being a parent's a job? Parental
Yeah.
development is, again, we get the same sort of thing in professional development. We're taught about self-care. We're taught about emotional intelligence. All these things transfer to parental development. Because I sound quite corny, but I think being a parent is probably the most important job we're ever going to have. And, you can throw the President of the United States in there if you like. It's like we top him because this is the most important by far.
Agreed. Agreed. I think we're, shepherding, like I love that you use that word, a new generation, the next generation into this world that feels chaotic and can feel, it's not like being human is not necessarily like this easy thing. We're here like, spinning on this rock and it's quite wild, it's kind of challenging. So yes, I think raising these humans up to be good people, to be kind, to love themselves, to know themselves. I heard you hint at that you have quite good relationships with your sons. I'm sure they're all a little bit different. And for me as a parent, I think that, and I've only discovered this in the last like few years as they start to get a little older. My main goal, my North Star is like, I want to be close with my kids for my whole life. I want
Mhm.
them to, trust me. I want them to feel comfortable being who they are with me. I want them, and so I often look as like these little kids as like practice rounds for like the age kids, and then school age kids are like practice round for the teenagers. And then the teenagers, like once you get there, like, I mean, I don't even know because I'm not there yet. And I'm still practicing. But my whole goal is like, okay, once they like fly the nest, that I just want them to still feel connected to me. And it doesn't mean I'm going to mother them the same way or tell them what to do. It just means that they will feel comfortable, maybe dare I say, having like friendships with me. So what's your take on that?
Look, I love the true north, and for any listeners who probably already know your true north, I think parents we come into being parents with these huge expectations. We're led a lot by the media and the movies, and we see all the ways of being a correct parent, but no one has ever, as far as my knowledge, sat a parent down and thought, okay, you're about to become a dad, you're about to become a mum. Now let's have a plan. What is your intention? What is your outcome? I mean, that needs to be, are you going to be like mum and dad? I like to take people back to think, well, what was their bringing up like? Were you happy? Were you a happy child? Did you find you struggled? And getting them to think about, what is truly important to them as being a parent. And as you said, I'm so thrilled that you already have a true north. You have that vision. We teach that in so much about having a goal and knowing which way to go. It's like it's your radar. It keeps you on the path, on the right path. So parents need to know that first. I was very similar. I made a decision, and my boys weren't easy to manage. They were, as I said, they were quite. Some had challenges, and some were just there to challenge me. But it's interesting that all the way along, I really wanted to. I would say that actually at a family barbecue, I once heard my son said, "Mum talked our heads off," but I wanted to install a habit of talking, and when they were little, talking about anything, so that we had this strong communication. And I knew, because I know as children get older, the conversations can be much more difficult to have. I often talk to parents who say, that's broken down. But I, from an early age, wanted to make sure that even if I was just talking about rubbish with the younger children, they got into the habit of, well, I can talk to mum about anything. And to this day, I mean, my baby, and I will call him a baby, he'll probably be cringing somewhere in London if he's watching this. He's now 23. And to this day, he will still ring me, and we will talk about his day at work. We will talk about maybe he's planning a trip to travel. And again, I thought to myself, we're still communicating, but we have had some rough conversations in the past, but they've been accepted because this was a habit that we've created the whole way through. And I really love that. I can say that I still have children who'll ring me on Mother's Day and Christmas, and if I don't make the effort, that won't happen. But at the end of the day, it's really what we put in, and it's which way we want to go that is important. So planning is everything. What do I think about parenting? Well, I'm very one-eyed. I think we've been blessed with probably the most, as I mentioned, most important job in the world. But we've also, we don't get given a handbook. We have to, we might be lucky if we have a mum or a grandma or a great grandma advising us along the way, but a lot of families don't now. So to me, this is the best thing in the world for them, to be really searching and always trying to improve. And I'm still trying to improve, even though I'm now working on the grandkids. And hopefully it'll be great grandkids, down the track. So we'll have these really nurturing roles. So we need to keep ourselves, up to speed and learn by our mistakes and not be hampered by them. There was certainly been plenty of times where I've stumbled and thought, oh, that wasn't probably the best thing to do. But in hindsight, you look back and again, you have a giggle, and around the family barbecues, I'm amazed how my boys bring up all the bad bits. They don't remember too many of the good bits, but they've always got a story about, oh, we remember when Mum fell asleep at the wheel and nearly killed us. Like, all these stories come up, and they don't remember them, but you got to laugh about them.
Yeah, it's so funny. And I think just like, being light with ourselves too, like, wow, I really botched that one. And I love like that you brought up laughter. One of my favorite things to do is like notice like the phrases that I'm saying and be like, well, I never thought I would say that in my life. Like this morning, my 2-year-old's like running with scissors. And I know you're not supposed to do, or my toddler, he's like running around the front yard because he's helping his sisters cut the banana leaves. And he's like running with the scissors up in his hair, up as like a gladiator. And I'm shouting out the window for all the neighbors to hear, don't run with the scissors. And he's already like gone. And it's like, those moments like that are just like, well, and my husband and I often say like, well, if we don't laugh, we'll cry. And sometimes it's just like, let's just laugh this off. And it's so true too about remembering the hard stuff or the bad stuff. My brother and I still bring up, silly conversations about our mom when she, lost her temper over a cheese pizza. One day we've got a classic pizza story, like just the silliest stuff sticks in our head. And this brings me to like, especially when our kids are 0 to 7, let's say, and you can correct me if you have a different opinion, we're installing, you use that word, installing this, this way of being with them, this way of feeling, this way of going about the world. And because they're just such sponges and we're programming essentially their subconscious minds. And you have a program called SleepTalk, which I find very fascinating and I'm curious to learn more about. But let's get into a little bit of like the neuroscience behind that and how we can wire our kids for positivity, happiness, creativity, fulfillment, etc.
Yes, no, absolutely. And you're right, Ryan. The 0 to 7 is what we call the imprint period. And I'm glad you mentioned sponges because that's exactly what children are. And of course, what we try to do as parents is we do want to impart, great values, great beliefs. We want children behaving, appropriately. But what we don't realize is there's a big world out there now, and children are actually bringing in a lot more information than just what they're hearing from mum and dad. And of course, if you want to talk about the media, you want to talk when they go off to childcare, as parents, we don't have control over what's going in, and children are so vulnerable because they don't understand sarcasm, they don't understand, in a lot of cases, things that are coming into them. And it just gets squirreled away. So if a child actually, even with a toddler or a child that's older than them, they still look at those individuals as authorities. So whatever an authority does, whatever an authority sort of acts, that child will take that into their conscious mind and form decisions, form emotions around those decisions, and then squirrel it away into their subconscious. So often I don't know, a few months, few years down the track, all of a sudden a behavior might manifest, and I'll have a parent say to me, I have no idea what's causing this. How can I deal with it? And it's really the wrong question. To me, the question is, okay, it's been formulated. How are we going to basically blanket it over with some more positive reinforcement and change? And that's where the sleep talk process came in. It's a process that I'm very proud of, but I must tell you, Ryan, it's been around for 50 years. It's probably one of the best kept secrets of parenting. There was a lovely gentleman in Australia called Mr. Golding who found himself with a 7-year-old daughter who had a lot of challenges. And he was a hypnotherapist, and he literally thought to himself, well, I can't change her world, but how can I get her to start accepting her world and to be happier and not as resistant and not as compliant? So Sleep Talk was actually born from him just coming up with a few statements at night after she'd gone to sleep, a few loving statements that were based on, at the time, we had no science, but of course now we know about neuroplasticity. And over the course of a few years, his lovely daughter just blossomed from being a child who was very angry, who was very aggressive, who wasn't speaking. She had lots of challenges. She was on the spectrum. And then over the years, he was actually not so much to change her, but he was able to make her be a lot happier, more comfortable with her life. And really, a lot of the skills that she picked up fine motor skills, she picked up gross motor skills, all the things that people said it was impossible, really started to come about. And now, as a result of that, this sleep talk process has been bubbling away for 50 years. And it is such a beautiful process. What I love, Ryan, is parents do the process. It takes no more than 3 to 5 minutes a night. And initially, when you start, it just makes children feel much more comfortable, much more resilient, and much more happier. And I have parents say to me, it's magic, Kerre. And it's not so much magic. It's really because in a lot of cases, children have formulated beliefs, and sometimes more negative than positive. And those beliefs basically over time do come out in, the changes of attitude or maybe behavior that's inappropriate. Or you have children who basically have, social skills. They might be shy, they might be bullies. All these categories are really addressed as we go through the sleep talk process. And I just feel I love talking to people about it because parents just have no idea it's out there. And it's safe, it's effective, and I feel like I'm doing a big promo on it. I'm not. I'm just letting you know that it's a really great tool for parents. Now, unfortunately, for me, I didn't discover the sleep talk process till my 5th child. I would have loved to have known about it earlier. So I had the good fortune of being able to watch my first 4 boys go through go through their childhood and then get into high school and go through that real difficult period for children. And then I watched my last child go through the same sort of journey, but the differences were amazing, to the point where I really got in touch with the trainer. I've learnt the process, and to this day, I actually now train and teach it. So it's really good to see. But some of the stories have just have blown my mind, that parents were able to sort of not so much undo, but being able to alter the family environment and just make it such a happier, more relaxed place, not just for the children, but for themselves as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely
I
love talking about sleep talk.
Yeah, there's so much here that I want to touch on. You said happy and relaxed families. Like, you talk about creating functional families. And when I hear that statement, I think of this like little machine with like different shaped like cogs and wheels and shapes, and like everyone in the family is different, and we all have our strengths, and we all have, gifts to bring to the table. We all have challenges. And I mean, we have 5 people in our family plus a dog, my kids would say. So, and it takes work for all of us to like be together and be able to communicate and not hurt each other's feelings, and to understand empathy, and just like there's so many moving parts. And so to have like, we personally, I will put a ton of priority on sleep, like a ton. And we have these very like lavish bedtime routines that start an hour prior, because I know how important sleep is. And for me, especially, but I know for my kids too. And so to add in 3 or 5 minutes of what I'm assuming, and you can, tell me more of the process, but is like me either maybe putting like a tape on of my voice, or just saying something to them while they're drifting off to sleep. And it's like, is it affirmations like, you are capable, you are confident, the world is safe to be in, you're safe here now, you are so loved, you're so protected, all these different things. Because that's what immediately comes up for me when I envision what that process would be like for our family. And I do believe that hypnotherapy is really powerful. One of my first experience with a personal development coach, she was trained as a hypnotherapist. And so that was like my first glimpse of it, about, I don't even know, 7 something years ago. And so I
Yeah.
do believe it's powerful for adults. So why would it not be probably even exponentially more powerful for kids who are completely just taking in their environment around them? So let's unpack that a little.
No, look, it's a great point. The first thing I want to say, yes, a hypnotherapist did devise the sleep talk statements. However, it's we try to explain to parents it's very different from hypnotherapy in the sense that yes, it is persuasive language, and we do it, Ryan, about 45 minutes after the children have gone to sleep, and we've done
Oh,
that because we really do not want. We don't want the children waking during the process, and children go through different sleep type cycles, and we like them to be in, to be probably in what we call the delta sleep cycle, where we are directly talking to their subconscious.
okay.
Many children, and we do that for a reason, the children don't know that the parents are doing it, because of course, if you have a child who is, really has control over mum and dad, or really you'll meet resistance if they don't want to change. I mean, things are good, especially when you're looking at children who have maybe eating challenges, sleeping disorders. There's an element of control. But when we talk to the subconscious, and the thing is, we're not really articulating what we call the causes. We actually, when you look at cause and effect, we're not looking at the effect, we're looking at the cause. We're talking directly to the subconscious mind. And I call it the cornerstone of the whole process in our foundation statement is children wake up in the morning and they just, after a while, they just feel unconditionally loved. They feel that from their core. And where it's different from hypnotherapy is it's not a stranger that's delivering these words. It's actually their trusted parent who is in, and we can do it with videos and electronics, but it is so much better when we actually have the parents deliver it personally, may one parent or possibly two, depending on who wants to do it. Because that subconscious night after night is getting this emotional, beautiful statement that children do wake up in the morning and they just start, over a period of time, they just start behaving differently. They start, and they don't know why. And it's because in the subconscious, it's gone straight to maybe the children had a fear of something. Maybe the children had a belief that they weren't worthy or they weren't good enough. And that's at a subconscious level. That was decided in that imprint period. And I'll give you a perfect example. As parents, we think our kids are going great. And I've had parents say to me, oh, my child's quite normal. And I'm thinking, well, I don't think I've ever had a normal child in my life. However, I was sitting it was a great learning for me. I was sitting at the table. I was on the computer, very busy as parents are. And he was about 7. My son, one of my sons was sitting there and he was trying to do his homework and he was gasping and getting all upset. And I thought to myself, and annoying me to the fact that I looked over, and this is some of the things that I've done horribly as a parent. I said, what's up? What's going on? And this tiny little beautiful 7-year-old said to me, I can't do my homework, Mum. I just can't do it. It's too hard. And I said, well, what do you got to do? And he said, I have to write a paragraph about what I love about myself. He said, I can't do it. And I looked at this kid and nearly fell off the chair. Up until that moment, I thought to myself, he was a great kid. Everybody loved him. And so the first thing I said to him, I said, don't be so stupid. Talk about terrible language. I said, how can you not write a paragraph about what you love about yourself? I said, everybody loves you. You're a great soccer player. You're a great swimmer. You can imagine, I'm a bit of a sporty mum, can you tell? Great soccer player, great swimmer. You're really smart. How can you not write a paragraph about yourself? And he looked at me in the eye and he said to me, Mum, he said, I have red hair. I have freckles. I am ugly. And these things popped out of nowhere, and I wanted to cry because up until that time, I'm thinking I would have loved to have killed who said to this kid that having red hair and freckles makes him ugly. But this had bubbled up from his subconscious. Now, if I'd only known about Sleep Talk, that I could have got started on that straight away. Now, of course, he's a man now, 33, but I did see him struggle. Through puberty, I saw him struggle. Like all of that has come from that belief somewhere that was imprinted when he was young. And this is where Sleep Talk is wonderful, because it doesn't matter what children are, think about themselves. Subconsciously, we start to mend those fences, and they really start to feel good. Their attitude changes, and all the harsh things that get told to them, like you are stupid, you're not as good as your brother, oh, you're being silly. We mean well when we say things like that, but that's very poor communication on a parent's level. And when we learn to change that, things get better. But Sleep Talk actually reverses some of those statements that we just, we mean well, but we have not done an excellent job. So hence why communication to me, I get on my communication bandwagon sometimes with parents and say, look, just watch what you're saying, because at the end of the day, we really, those things in that imprint period go straight in and children make decisions on them. And that basically comes back to haunt them at a later date.
Yeah. And I would add what we say and how we say it too, right? Because I remember becoming a mom almost a decade ago, even when I was pregnant with my first, and just kind of like unpacking my childhood and, really just like starting to look at and give my inner child some love and, speak to her the way she needed to be spoken to. And it's not very it's not rocket science. It can be a challenge, to be present and to speak with kindness and to really listen and to not want to change every single thing your kid does or says, or, to just be like kind of open is like, it just is a habit, right? And so if we're not used to it, it takes time. And now a decade later, I think I've got this, please, I mean, life changes all the time and we're in different stages, like in a day and in a week and in a month. But, you know, I look back and I see how far I've come and I see how it's possible to make these really simple changes over time. And like you said, it starts with us, which I always joke is like the good news and the bad news. Like we have the power. It starts with us. So I love this conversation. I love the idea of filling your child's head with these positive phrases and beliefs and you know just beautiful things to kind of like feed to them when 45 minutes after they fall asleep. I'm like fascinated by this process. And we have a thing to carry. I don't know if you've heard of this. It's called a Yoto player. It's YOTO player. And it's a little box and you get these little cards. It's mostly books and you get these little cards. It looks like a little credit card and the kids can put the card in and they listen to a book. We're a big book family. And when I can't read, they'll listen to one, or now my two older ones read themselves. But and you can make your own cards for this player. And I have considered like making this card of affirmations for them for sleep time. And so this would be such a good tool for the parents who are using the SleepTalk process to like record their voices on these little cards. And then you can actually play them, which is so cool, from an app on your phone. Like they'll be listening to their nighttime music and I'll put on like the sleep timer from my phone app. And it's really cool. I dig it. So that's another thing to think about with that is like kind of doing a recording. Are your parents going into the room every night and just kind of like hovering over their kids and like whispering sweet somethings into their ears? Or
no, and I'm really open to checking this out more. Yes, they do. And Ryann, we I guess I can tell your listeners another brilliant secret is, yes, this makes brilliant positive change for the children. Parents see it happening. We get them to start diaritizing things they notice. But guess whose other subconscious is listening when this is getting delivered?
us?
Parents,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I have had parents, and I work with a lot of busy parents, a lot of professional parents who say, Kerre, 3 to 5 minutes at the nighttime is really hard for me. I've got this, I'm scheduled and I've got when the kids go to bed, I've got more work to do. And I get that. But I often say to them, this is 3 to 5 minutes where you sharing with your child, you're talking to your child's soul, you're talking to your inner child, telling them how much you unconditionally love them. Why would that be more going out and getting a coffee and starting to watch the TV or getting back on the laptop? How could that possibly be more important than this? And at the end of the day, it's more like we teach those parents to get into the habit. And once they're into the habit, I've had a gentleman who was a dentist who said to me, he's going to do SleepTalk until his kids leave home and get married. He
Yep.
just wants to keep it going. Because it does bring about an euphoria, I guess is the word for it. They're beautiful words. They resonate really well. And it is that cornerstone is that unconditional love, that bond that it will never, no matter what, a parent is going to love me. When children have that really at the bottom of their subconscious, it's interesting how much more resilient they can come. And that's what I found with my last child. It's interesting how all of a sudden a lot of the small stuff dissipates. And we talk about habits, nail biting, twirling hair. Initially, all that goes. And this is why it was so good for when it was designed for this 7-year-old. Like she had major challenges, but all the minor ones disappeared. The major challenges improved and got better over time. And I'll give you an example. I've just had one recently where a father I've been working with used to tell me when his kids were very small, it was a big joke that when he'd come home from work, after a hard day's work, both of the boys, there were two boys, would run to the front door and lock what we call a screen door, lock the screen door. And so he couldn't get into his house, and he'd have to stand at the front door waiting for his wife to come. Now, he said it was really cute, when they first started doing it, but of course they let it go. And after a couple of years, it really was starting to annoy this father that he couldn't even come home and be accepted, or welcomed by his two boys. They just got into the habit of locking him out every afternoon. And when we talked about other stuff, he come clean and he said, I just don't feel like the boys communicate me. They don't touch me. They cuddle their mum, but they don't cuddle me. He said, I just don't feel like I'm part of this household. So he started doing SleepTalk. And after a few minutes, or after a few months, and I think it was about 2.5, 3 months, I got a really excited call from him. And for the first time ever, his little 7-year-old had actually ran down the hallway. He was getting out of the car. He just was expecting the normal behavior pattern. Anyway, he said, next thing you know, he burst out of the screen door. The screen door went flying, and he ran straight up to his dad and gave him a big hug. 7 years old. He'd never done it before. Well, his dad said his knees went. He couldn't stand back up again because it just sounded so normal for people. Oh, yes, the child gives me a hug. But this behavior just come about overnight, and Dad was gobsmacked. And the locking the door for both of the boys just doesn't happen anymore. So, stories like that we got hundreds of them, but this one was very recent, and it just makes me realize that the SleepTalk process is priceless, not just for fixing little things, but it's just priceless.
Yeah, that's so sweet. I love that. And I think too, I wonder if you have like a comment on dads versus moms doing it. I feel like mothers and this feminine energy we bring is a little more natural to be like super lovey, and we nourish our kids, and it's a little more like innate. But dads and men, I most of our generation and the generations before us weren't really like nurturers traditionally. And so they don't really have that like innately in them. So I wonder if you've like noticed a difference between moms and dads doing it, or do you have mostly one or the other that come to you?
No, great question, Ryan. It's normally there'll be one predominant parent who grabs the process and runs with it.
Yeah.
And often there'll be a second parent who will be watching, and I won't, let's just say it's the male energy, and I'm not picking on males, but one parent will go with it. And there'll be the second parent who'll be just watching. And often that second parent, ideally, it's great if we can do one night with mum, one night with dad, or one night with one parent, one night with the other parent. But it doesn't always happen. But I find that particularly with children who are on the spectrum or have, some serious challenges, there's 3 phases of SleepTalk. And I find by the time we get to the third phase, where we're individually working on a specific area, that's when the second partner will step in, because they would have seen the progression, and they would have seen the progression over a few months. And it's all like, oh, okay, I'll get in and have a go at this. But I do pick up, and it's interesting. I've had a lot of clients who are in the Navy. They're in the military, and so they cannot basically physically be there to actually deliver it to their children. And in that case, you're right. We actually do encourage a tape. So often the process works better when both parents are involved. But in saying that, we have a lot of families that are just one single parents. But it works better if we can get both involved. But then at the end of the day, it's not, you're right. I'll just pick up, I'm a bit of a storyteller, Ryan. I hope you don't mind. I had one dad say to me once, he had a boy who was needed some assistance. He was a policeman, and I remember distinctly at our first virtual meeting, he saying to me, well, that's all right, my wife will do it. I'm a policeman, he said, and so I'm not home all the time. And he said, actually, I don't even know if this is worth it. He said, because to tell you the truth, he said, there's nothing wrong with me. And there's nothing wrong with me. And my dad brought me up like I'm bringing him up. And I just remember just keeping, not smiling, because I find that funny. There was definitely lots challenges in that family. But then I looked over at the mum, and the mum's there rolling her eyes because she knew. And one of the challenges that we worked on was the boy loved Lego. He would spend hours on building these crafts of Lego. His dad would come home, and it doesn't matter what time dad would come home and really discipline him and break down all his Lego and put it back to where in his little boxes. Dad was a bit ACDC, and it was crushing the boy's spirit and creativity. And you can imagine there was not a good relationship happening. Well, interesting, Mum rang me about 6 months after they'd been doing the phase 2 and were getting on to phase 3. Oh, no, she didn't ring me. She sent me a photo. That's right, come through the phone. And all it was a picture of Dad sitting down next to his son, and they were doing Lego together. That was all the photo was. So a normal photo, which you think, yes, it's beautiful. Dad's playing with Lego. What's different about that? But what was different is what it meant to me was, wow, we have worked on Dad without him realizing it. And this is nothing wrong with me. That had just gone out the window. So again, we don't really tell parents that the process will change them. But, inside, we all have our inner child. And when we think about the way we were brought up, in many cases, a lot of people didn't feel unconditionally loved. And this magical process actually unlocks a few things. So, yes, I'm very happy to say that that son now plays, and his dad takes pictures of the creations, and they don't try and fix it every night. They leave it, which is brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing more powerful than unconditional love. I mean, if that is like the driving force behind this, then I'm super on board. I think it's great. It's time to wrap up. I'm going to ask you the questions I ask everybody at the end. I could talk to you for hours more, Kerre, but before we get into the end piece here, tell us where we can find you and follow you and learn more about you and the work you're doing in the sleep talk process too, of course.
Oh, absolutely. The website is the sleeptalkprocess.com. People can email me, Kerre at SleepTalk, which is SleepTalk, all one word, sleeptalktrainingacademy.com. But on both of those, certainly on the website, people can actually click on and organize a coffee chat with me. And I do always have a coffee chat with parents because, I mean, we're all different. Every family has a different dynamic, and I like talking to parents. I like them letting me know what's going on. And that way, if I can help them, I will. And if I can't help them, or I feel that they should be moving into another area, I can actually advise them at the end of the day. So even though you guys are in different time zones, isn't it great? We live in a virtual world where they can reach me, and we can do what we're doing now. Just have a quick chat, 15 minutes. It doesn't cost anything, but it's great for parents sometimes parents have nobody to talk to, and I like being there and listening and seeing how I can help.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, is that sometimes we just need to be like heard and like go like, oh my God, this is what we're going through, and just be like totally honest with someone. Sometimes that's easier with a stranger than that is with like, family or whatever. Like it's just like, oh my God, this is what's going on. And just to know that like we're all having our own struggles. Our kids are all having their own challenges. Like this is not isolated. Like it's not easy raising a family. It's not easy being a kid. I say that to my kids sometimes. I'm like, I know. Like when they're upset, I'm like, I know. Sometimes it's not easy to be a kid. You have very little control. Like you don't get to call the shots quite yet. I get it. So yeah, it's not easy. All right. Thank you so much. This conversation is such a gift. This process is such a gift. I can't wait to look more into it and to consider this because it's something I didn't know the sleep talk process was a thing, but this has been something I've kind of had in my mind for a while to do, to create a little card for them, just like for affirmation's sake. But I love like I want to dig into the science of it and see the process and all that. So that's great. But as we wrap up, I'm going to ask you the first question here, which is, what's bringing you joy today?
Oh, what's bringing me joy today is I'm off traveling interstate for to see some of my grandkids and to deliver the presents to them in person, which is absolutely fabulous. Again, that's why we're here. So yes, I'll be playing Santa Claus probably in about 7 hours. Australia's quite big, as you can imagine, Ryan. So it takes me 7 hours to get to my grandkids, but it'll be lovely. I can't wait. That will always bring me joy.
Oh, so fun. Oh, enjoy that and soak it up. And then what, if anything, are you reading?
Oh, great question. I'm actually reading a book that's all about marketing. It's by a gentleman called James Yule. That's Yuille. And there's so many books out there on businesses, and this one is he's been a marketing expert for like 40, 50 years. And I'm quite enjoying it because it's not just talking about all the things that you should be doing. It's talking about things that you probably could be improving. So yes, definitely. How did you lose that sale? But I'm a sponge. I'm always reading something. So I have really enjoyed or am enjoying this one. Definitely worth checking out if you're in business. I think when we think about it, we're parents. We are in business. We can call ourselves business people because we are persuading and really molding our child. That's a business.
That is so true. As my dog is just barking because we've got helpers coming over in the house. So please excuse the dog barking, everybody. Come here. You're such a good guard dog. Okay, come here. Come here. Okay, good boy. It's so true.
They're not elves. Tell him
yeah.
don't chew the elves.
Right, exactly. Sit down. Good boy. Okay. He wants to be right under my desk, just like guarding. I love how you relate to like parenting, family raising to business and to personal development, because it is like we are running like basically a business. I mean, it's not profitable, but I like relating it to it because it is the same kind of thing. You have different levels, you have all different people working together. So yes, that makes sense. James Yule. And the book is called How Did You Lose That Sale?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. That sounds interesting. And then the last question I have for you is, who or what has taught you the most?
Oh, I would have to say my children. My children definitely have learnt the most. And again, I guess I have the benefit of being I can look back, and we all would look back at but I don't look back on just the bad times. I look back on the great times, and they are always. In fact, my 23-year-old is still teaching me heaps, and that'll never stop. He goes crook at me if I'm learning Vietnamese, and so he's following me on Duplo, and every time I miss a day, I get an email. It's sort of he's become the adult and I've become the child, but that's how you learn.
I love that. Thank you so much again, Kerre. You're such a gift, and thank you for doing the work that you're doing in the world.
Oh, thank you. And Merry Christmas to each and everybody that is on tonight. Please don't hesitate to reach out, and hopefully in the new year we can be helping a lot of people.
Hi again, friend. If you're listening to this, you made it to the end of a Raising Wild Hearts episode. Yay! Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you can hear more amazing conversations just like this one. And here's the deal. If you made it this far, go ahead and hop down on your podcast app and rate and review the show. Your words and 5 stars truly mean the world to me. Thank you for your support of the show. Thank you for showing up and listening week after week. I will be dropping new episodes every Monday, so tune in then, and I will talk to you soon.